G'day everyone, welcome to the Brisbane Infrastructure and DevOps User Group. I'm your host, Michael. This month, actually, no, sorry, I'm just going to quickly go through some stuff. Sorry, I'm a little bit lost at the moment. I just quickly wanted to say, it was sponsored by Hudson Recruitment. If you're thinking about new opportunities or getting into a different field, things like that, consider Hudson. And then ScriptRunner. ScriptRunner is is run by the German guy. They're German based. But basically, they run Azure automation on steroids. Really awesome PowerShell solutions that they have there. And if you're thinking about automating your IT environment with PowerShell, consider ScriptRunner. Alrighty. I think I got the wrong slide deck. Yes, I do. That's right. So next up in September, I can't believe it's September now. Fair income. That's insane. So in September, it's one of the two talks. It's either going to be ScriptRunner or it's going to be Nick Bissell, which is one of the senior editors that worked on the PowerShell community textbook. A very knowledgeable guy about PowerShell. I'm still yet to confirm. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I'll pop the meetup and the announcement in meetup and obviously on Slack, so on and so forth, and on Twitter. And I think that's about it. I'm just thinking, yeah, I think that's it. All right, that was nice and easy. All right, cool beans. Okay, over to you, Vivian. I'm going to introduce Vivian. So Vivian's going to be giving a talk on SSH for Azure Arc, which is really going to be really exciting. A little bit about Vivian. Actually, no, Vivian, I might get you to just kind of introduce yourself. Tell us what you do and a little bit about yourself. Oh, I think she might have dropped off. Yep. Okay. Yep.
Teams.
Yeah. Teams.
Well, Teams actually worked perfectly for me tonight, which is extremely rare. So it happened. It happened.
Yeah, sorry about that. Teams is having a rough night here.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. So I was just saying, if you're able to just quickly introduce yourself, tell us a bit about yourself, and yeah, you're free to kick off.
All right, sounds good. So hi everyone, I'm really excited to be here talking to you guys, introducing Shark, which has been a really cool product that we've been working on. I work the PowerShell and OpenSSH team, and yeah, so I work more on the OpenSSH side. So what we do is we maintain the Windows OpenSSH port, and we also do some Azure-related connectivity projects, that being one of them. And yeah, I'm really excited to show that. We just GA'd last month, and yeah. Can you guys see me and hear me? Because I think Michael camera just froze, and I don't know if it's just me. Okay,
yes,
cool.
We can see you. Yes, yep.
Sorry if I drop suddenly
right.
again. All right, so let me share slides with you guys. Share. Can you guys see this slide?
Yes, it looks good.
All right, cool. Stop me if something suddenly disappears or something like that. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna get started. So this is SSH to Arc servers, and we really like to call it Shark, which is just a cool name, but this is the official name, SSH to Arc-enabled servers. Okay, so first I'm gonna start with a quick presentation summary, just so you guys know where it's coming, what's gonna be happening. So first I'm gonna do a quick introduction on Azure Arc and Azure Arc-enabled servers. I don't know how familiar you guys are with Azure, so I'm gonna cover that a little bit. Then I'm gonna do a demo on how to onboard an on-prem machine to Azure Arc servers. Then I'm gonna do an introduction to SSH for Arc servers and do a little bit of a deep dive on how the architecture of that works. Then I'm gonna do a demo on how to set that up and how to connect to your machines via Shark. Then I'm going to do just show some cool features that you can use, so like logging in to Azure servers using Azure Active Directory, and other cool features like RDP via Shark, portal experience, and SSH config. And hopefully we can do a Q&A. Also, feel free to stop me at any time if you have questions or if my presentation suddenly stops working. Yeah, so let's get started. Oh, just a note. All these features that I'm going to be showing tonight, like onboarding to Arc-enabled servers and using Shark, those are free. So you don't. So yeah, you just need a Azure subscription and you're able to use them for no extra cost. All right, so let's get started. What is Azure Arc? So nowadays, company environments are more and more complex, and they extend across data centers and multiple clouds and the edge. And therefore, it's really hard to manage and govern that infrastructure since every environment have their own management tools. So this is where Azure Arc comes in. It's a management platform that allows you to simplify governance and management by providing a multi-cloud and on-premise management platform. And it's consistent, so you can manage different resources that are hosted in different places, the same way that you'd be managing your Azure resources. So the way it works, it allows you to project non-Azure resources into Azure Resource Manager. And then you can manage your servers, your Kubernetes clusters, and your databases and other resources as if they were running in Azure. So that way you can implement like a consistent inventory of all your infrastructure. You can manage, govern, and secure those resources across all of your environment on a single place. And those services are consistent with Azure, like services that are for resources that are hosted in Azure. So there's a little diagram here, just how this works. You're going to have your on-premise infrastructure resources, your servers, your databases, your SQL clusters. Same on like you might have some on AWS, Azure Cloud. Then you can onboard that infrastructure using the Azure Arc-enabled infrastructure onboarding to Azure Arc, and that's going to project that into Azure Resource Manager. And you're going to be able to see those resources and manage those resources using Azure Resource Manager, and also be able to use tools for management, compliance, and security, and other cool resources that Azure offers. So specifically, what is Azure Arc-enabled servers? Azure Arc-enabled servers allows you to manage your Windows and Linux machines that are hosted outside of Azure as if they were in Azure. So basically, you just need to, again, connect your machine to Azure Arc, and they're going to be treated as like a normal virtual machine that is hosted in Azure. That way you can use features like, for example, log analytics, Microsoft Defender, Azure Automation, those features that are available for Azure resources, but now you can also use them on machines that are hosted outside of Azure. So yeah, moving forward, I'm going to do a quick demo on just how to onboard a machine that is hosted outside of Azure as an Arc-enabled server. So I have a Linux Hyper-V VM on my local machine, and I'm going to be showing that. Do you guys have any questions before I move on with that? Or I'll just move on.
Yeah, I don't see anything in chat either in Twitch nor in Teams. So yeah, good to go.
All right. So, all right, can you guys see my browser? Am I still sharing my screen?
Yep, we can see your browser. Yep.
Are you
Okay,
able
cool.
to zoom in just a tiny bit? Sorry.
Yes. Can you see
Thank you
it?
very much.
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
All right. So this is the Azure portal, and the first step for onboarding your machine to Azure Arc is you come to the portal, and then you go to your Azure Arc resource type. Then you're going to have an add or create, add a single server, and then you just have to fill up this information with your subscription. I have a test subscription here. Then you're going to have a resource group, which is just like a logical group of Azure resources. Your select a region, might have a Linux VM. Then I'm going to be using a public endpoint for connectivity, but you can read further into these other options here. And what this is going to do is it's going to generate a bash script. If it was Windows, it would generate a PowerShell script that you can run on the machine that you want to onboard. And that's going to download the agent and project this machine to Arc. So I have this Ubuntu machine running on Hyper-V. I'm just gonna run the script. Let's just give it a second. It's just going to basically download the Arc agent that is going to be running on a machine, and it is going to connect this machine to Arc, and then run it and connect it to Azure. It might just take a second. So yeah, while we wait for this, does anyone have any questions or comments?
Yes, hi Vivian. This is Meghla here. I come from an AWS background, so I'm very new to Azure. So just wondering, like, how do you SSH to the Ubuntu server, like in Azure? Like, is it something like from a Mac? How do you do it?
Yeah. So for this demo, I'm going to be showing. Also, I canceled the operation. That's great. For this demo, I'm going to be showing how to SSH into that VM using
is it something like public IP or something, or how is it?
I don't know what that is, but it's well, okay. In this, sorry, just a second, trying to authenticate. Sure. So yeah, in this scenario here, we are let's imagine that like this Ubuntu is like behind a private sorry, it's like behind like a private network, and you're not able to connect from unless you're inside the private network or using VPN or something like that. So this is in this demo, we're going to be showing how to do that and how to use that using the Arc connectivity platform. But yeah, I'm going to go deep. I'm going to go on a deep dive on how we're going to be
connecting. Okay, I'll wait.
Okay,
I'll wait for it. Yeah, sure.
By the end, I'll check with you if I answer your question.
Sure. Thanks.
So okay, so now this completed, and now my machine is running in Azure. Not running in Azure, it's projected to Azure. So if I come here to Azure Arc and I look at my machines, sometimes it takes a second for it to show up in the portal. Oh no, this is the one, right? Yeah, this is the one. Cool. This is it. So now you can see your machine projected into Azure. I'm looking to that in the Azure portal. And then you can, like I said, use cool Azure features on that machine now that is hosted outside of Azure. So for example, Insights, Logs, Defender, VM extensions. And speaking of VM extensions, I'm going to add one right now because we're going to need it for the demo. And it takes a minute to install. All right, cool. While this is deploying, I'm going to go back to the slide deck. Can you guys see the slides again?
Yep.
All right. So now we're going to cover SSH to Arc-enabled servers, or Shark. So what is Shark? So okay, you have your machine onboarded to Arc, and now you want to connect to it, but corporate IT resources will more likely be sitting behind a private network. So you won't be able to access from outside unless you expose like a public IP and you open inbound firewall rules, which is not good. So Shark comes in and allows you to connect to your machine without having to expose a public IP or open inbound rules. And yeah, so the connection happens over this connectivity platform, which I'm going to go in detail on how each of these components work. So first, I'm going to talk about the Azure Relay. So Azure Relay is an Azure service that enables you to securely expose a service that is running in a private network to the public cloud without needing any inbound firewall rules. So the basic flow is that an on-premise service, for example, let's say this agent, is going to make a connection call to this relay service and through an outbound port instead of an inbound port. And once that connection is established, the Azure Relay is going to establish a bidirectional socket communication that is tied to a particular address. So that way the Azure Relay can talk to that service running in a private network, and the agent can and the service can talk to the Azure Relay without needing to have an inbound port open for that. And that once that bidirectional socket is enabled, is established, a client can make a call to that address of the Azure Relay instance, and the messages sent to the Azure Relay are going to be relayed to the service running in a private network. So that way, the client doesn't have to know where that server is running, and the client is able to talk to it without the service needing to open any inbound ports. So have a little diagram here on how that connection is established. So a listening client is going to make a listening request to Azure Relay through a gateway that is sitting closest to it. And that's going to create a relay on the gateway store. And then once a sending client makes a connection request on whatever gateway is closest to it, that's going to make a relay lookup on that gateway store. And then it's going to forward the connection request to the gateway closest to the listening client. The gateway is going to send that connection to the listening client, and then the listening client is going to establish a temporary channel with the gateway closest to the sending client. And once that is established, the listening client can send messages to the sending client and vice versa without through those gateways without having to open inbound port or anything. So that is the Azure Relay, which runs here on our connectivity platform. So the next component that I wanted to talk about is the actual Azure server, Azure Arc-enabled server, that is going to be this box here. So the Azure Arc-enabled service has a agent running in it, and that agent is just like a bundle of logic components, and one of them is the connect agent, which once the agent is installed and after we onboard to Azure Arc and the agent starts running, it makes a call to this component called GNS, and GNS is going to create a provision a relay for that agent, and then the agent is going to make a call through an outbound port to the Azure Relay and create that bidirectional socket. So any traffic coming through the Azure Relay is going to be now relayed to that agent, and that agent is going to forward that to whatever local service depending on the port. So in this example for Shark, is going to redirect that to the SSH, open SSH server running locally. And finally, the client side. So this is like the client machine that you're using to make requests, to connection requests to the Arc-enabled server. So the client or caller application is going to be either an Azure CLI extension or an Azure PowerShell module, which is going to make a call to Azure Resource Manager, which is going to go through a resource provider to get to the GNS, which is going to return the relay necessary information for connection. So whatever the caller application needs to be able to connect to that relay, any tokens, address, all of that. So the client's going to get that relay information, and then it's going to make an SSH call using the proxy command parameter to execute, which allows you to connect to a server through an intermediary server. So that proxy is just going to be installed on your machine by that client application, and it's going to use that information that we got from GNS, that relay information, to find that relay and open a connection to it. So once that connection is established, all the traffic from SSH is going to go through that proxy, through that relay to the agent, and then it's going to hit the local SSHD server running on the Arc server. And just to note, these are a lot of steps for the client application, but all of that happens behind the scenes. So the user doesn't have to worry about making all those calls itself. It just has to provide the name of the Arc server and the resource group. And then the client application does all of that for it. So it's a very clean experience, very easy. Okay, so demo time. So I'm going to show how to set up SSH for Arc servers for your Arc server, and then I'm going to show an example of a connection. So I have some steps here, but I'm just going to show it on. Oh, cool! Our VM extension is installed. This is our Arc server. All right. Okay, so to do this connection, if you look at the documentation online, there's going to be more details of any steps that you have to do. Enable the resource provider for the subscription, but I won't do all that for now. I'm going to assume that is already set up. So I'm going to use, you have to have either Azure CLI or Azure PowerShell module installed. I have both. So if I list my AZ extensions that I have installed, I have this extension called SSH, which is used for SSHing to resources in Azure. So first you have to log in. So you run an AZ login, which is going to window here. I'm going to log into my account. Done. And then I have to enable the subscription that I want to use. So my machine is running on this subscription, so I'm just gonna do an AZ account subscription. All right, so now I'm running on that context. I can just run AZ SSH Arc, and then I provide the name, which is demo BWG, and the resource group, which I think is Shark BWG. And I'm gonna log into a local user account, so I have a local user already created on that machine. Okay, so once you do that for the first time on a machine that you created, if you're an owner, you're going to see a message like that, which is port 22 is not allowed for connection in this resource. Would you like to create it? I can create it because I am an owner, but the connection is not enabled by default. So to enable that connection, you have to explicitly create a rule on Azure, on the resource control plane in Azure, to allow SSH connections into the port 22 of that machine. So the connection is not enabled by default. So since I have permissions to create it, I'm going to hit yes. That just takes a minute to on the first run. It takes a second, and sometimes it fails on the first attempt too, but that's expected. It will just retry in a little bit. Oh, there we go. All right.
Is this using the actual like SSH binary in the background, or is it using like some .NET library for the communication?
It's using the actual SSH that ships with your OS. So yeah, it just calls like it starts a process with that SSH. So
Cool.
I can show. So I'm gonna get the debug logs just so maybe we can see what's going on behind the scenes a little bit better. Gonna skip all this log. So yeah, basically what it's doing is like calling the SSH exe that is installed on your machine. It comes by default on Windows and of course on Linux. And yeah, it's providing the proxy that gets installed in your machine and all the information that you need to authenticate with the relay. And yeah, and then it establishes the connection. For this demo, I'm using a local user just because I didn't, not a local user, password authentication just because it's just a demo and I didn't end up setting up some keys, but you can also just use your normal public and private key authentication. And the command supports that. So yeah, this is connecting to Shark. We also have this PowerShell commandlet for it, which has tab complete, which is really cool for me. So yeah, it has. I can't find my resource group. Weird. Oh, there we go. Yeah, tab complete works. Yeah, so this commandlet basically just does the same thing. It's the same as the Azure CLI, so it's kind of like whatever you prefer if you want to do a Azure PowerShell or Azure CLI, whatever you have set up. Yeah, all right. So now I'm going to move forward to talking about some other cool features that we have for that. So you can, this is a very popular feature on Azure virtual machines already. And now that is also enabled for Azure Arc servers, which is really cool. So you can authenticate using Azure Active Directory. That is right now only working on Linux, and there's work being done to enable that on Windows Arc servers and virtual machines as well. So basically, you use your Azure Active Directory credentials to log into your Arc server instead of logging into a local account that was already created on your machine. Basically, how it works is you use Azure Active Directory as a certificate authority, and you SSH into Arc servers using OpenSSH certificate-based authentication. So that is a lot more convenient and safer. So you don't need to worry about configuring and manage private keys for all of your servers that you have running across your infrastructure. You don't have to provision public keys and actually place them on each of the servers. You don't have to worry about rotating those keys, and you don't have to worry about when you have you have someone in your company that leaves the company and but they still have a private key, so you have to change all those servers, so you don't have to worry about that. And also it discourages using password authentication and weak passwords, so it increases security. And you can easily manage who has access to it and how much permissions they have on it, like if they're a regular user or an administrator user. using Azure role-based access control, which is also very convenient. You can set that up for a group of resources on a subscription level. So this is very convenient and a safe alternative, and it's very popular already in virtual machines. So it's a cool feature. So I'm going to show how to use that and how to set that up. So back on our portal, we can, okay. First thing we gotta do is we have to have the AAD SSH login extension running. So I added that extension earlier in this presentation, just as I created the machine. So yeah, this is going to be an extension running on my machine, and they are gonna handle AAD SSH login. The next step is I need to have access to log in as my Azure AD user on that machine. So you come to access control, and you're going to assign either virtual machine administrator login role or virtual machine local use, no, not this one, virtual machine user login role. If you want, I'm going to assign myself administrator login, so I'm going to have like sudo permissions once I log in that account. So let me find myself here. Okay, so just need a second to assign that permission. And now I should be good to go. So if I try to connect to that machine again using that same command, the command that we used before, but instead I don't provide a local user. If I don't provide a local user, it's just going to attempt to connect to using my Azure AD account by default. So yeah, now I logged in into the same machine, and if I check who am I'm running, this is like an account that got created specifically for my Azure AD account, and yeah, this is really cool. So if so it's a lot easier to manage who can get in, how much permission that person has, and yeah, that is it. So this VM extension is basically just going to be like reaching out to Azure Active Directory, creating a public key, providing that public key to be signed by that certificate authority, and then we use that certificate that just got generated to log in. So it's a very simple experience to do. It's very few steps, and you're able to log in using that. All right, so finally, I'm just going to show some other cool features that we have running in Azure. So I'm going to start with RGP for SSH Arc. So, okay, so if you're trying to connect to a Windows machine, Arc-enabled machine, you can't, and you want to connect using RDP. That's still the same, like the same problem exists. Like it's sitting behind a private network. You can't access it. We don't have a specific Arc platform working for that specific connection protocol. So what can we do? So we already have SSH working. So to enable RDP, all you have to do is create an SSH tunnel over SSH Arc-enabled over Shark, and use that tunnel to connect via RDP. So I have another Windows machine already running here. Thought I copied. Okay. All right. So I can SSH into that machine like normal. Just showing normal connection, normal SSH connection. And then alternatively, if I can use this RDP parameter, which is going to open an SSH tunnel, and once that tunnel is established, it's going to have RDP connect over that tunnel. So it kind of just popped this screen here. And now I connected to my account, my machine using RDP. And if we want to take a look at what's going on behind the scenes here, ignore all this logs. Okay, this is the command that is being run instead. It's just finding like an open port and creating a tunnel through that, and then we just call RDP to connect via this port, and all the traffic going through SSH gets redirected to the RDP server running on my target machine. So that is cool. People could do that themselves by providing their own parameters, but we just wanted to facilitate this because it's a useful feature. All right, the other cool feature I wanted to show is the ability to create OpenSSH configuration files. Before I move on, actually, does anyone have any questions so far?
Yeah, so there's a few questions in chat that's kind of going around. So I think one of them's been answered. I think Wayne's got a question with regards to, can we have RDP with Azure AD Auth 2? I'm sure we can. I just want to check.
Well, AD Auth right now it's only enabled for Linux, so it doesn't work for Windows yet. So right now, if you're trying to RDP to a Windows machine, no. I know it's technically possible to RDP to a Linux machine, and if you are doing that, which is you can use AD login to create the SSH tunnel, but you're still gonna get like once the RDP connection starts, you're still gonna get like a prompt for a password. That's kind of an uncommon scenario, RDP over Linux. I mean, it's possible, but
yep. Yeah.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
I can just see Danny in the background. He's madly answering questions. I've got a quick question with regards to you kind of mentioned that essentially you can kind of wrap, you're kind of facilitating the making it easy for people to be able to take advantage of, connecting over SSH different protocols. Would it be possible to be able to wrap other protocols within that? So let's just, for example, WinRM. Would you be able to do it? Essentially, do WinRM over that SSH using SSH Arc.
Yeah, I believe if we use the same principle that we use for RDP, we could create an open SSH tunnel and then have the traffic be redirected to the WinRM server. We could implement that. I'm sure it's possible. We just didn't get to that yet, but it should be possible to do that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So essentially, that's pretty cool. All right. Does anyone have any other questions? Also, throw it out to Twitch chat as well. If anyone has any questions on Twitch, please pop them in chat.
I've got two questions. So the example that you're showing there, you're setting up a forwarded port with SSH. Does this support setting up like a SOCKS proxy with it, which is sort of similar, but it uses different types of arguments for that one there?
Mm-hmm. I think it should. I never tried personally, but I don't see why not.
Cool.
I think we only have the little RDP flag enabled right now, but the Azure CLI has an option that you can provide OpenSSH parameters in addition to the expected parameters here. So you just provide a 2-, and then you can provide any SSH open SSH parameters you want. So
awesome. So that's like a free form, just gets passed down to the SSH side. Okay, that should be possible.
Yeah. So if you ever want to give that a try, I might give that a try myself some other time, because that should be possible.
Awesome. My other question is, does this work with the PowerShell remoting SSH side, like invoke command or enter PS session, or is that, if it doesn't, is that something planned for the future?
Well, then you might have a better idea of like plan for the future. You want to go ahead, Danny?
Yeah, I can answer. So right now, it doesn't work with, I'd say a classic, PowerShell remoting where it's an enter PS session. It's certainly something we're evaluating on the roadmap for the future, and I'd say that like just the feedback just from these kind of calls is certainly beneficial. The interesting thing that you can also do with, I'd say, Shark, and I'd say Vivian hasn't shown yet, but you can generate an SSH config file and pass that to other tooling. And so while we don't, I'd say, support, PowerShell remoting with this, command as of right now, there's not really a reason you couldn't just generate an SSH config file and then use that, I'd say, in your PowerShell remoting scenario anyway. Hey, so is there a way to do it kind of workaroundy? Yes. Is it supported, I'd say, natively with the command yet? No. Will it be in the future? Most likely.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool.
I just realized when you use the browser, my video has been off this whole time. Cool.
It's okay. It's all right. I was going to just quickly say, I don't think there's any other questions being asked. So yeah, feel free to continue.
Okay. I also can't see the chat, so I'm sorry if I'm not replying to any questions in the chat. It's just I can't see it. The Teams for browser is not working for me very well.
That's all good.
Yeah, so moving forward, I'm just going to show the feature that Danny just mentioned, which is using config files, generating config files. So we have a commandlet that is az, same group of commandlets, az ssh config, which will generate a config file that will basically enable the same type of connection that just the normal AZSH VM or Arc command does. So let me just find. Okay. So same thing. EWG source group. Okay, so just this commandlet AZSH config, I provide same information as before. Oops, except that I forgot that it requires another parameter.
Check your spelling on resource group as well.
Thanks. Okay, this should work now. All right, so that worked. So, okay, so that will create a config file for me that I can use for connect using different tooling other than just the normal native SSH command. So I think you can use it in any platform that supports OpenSSH config files. I think Git, SSH for Git supports that, and other stuff like that. PowerShell remoting should be able to support that. So yeah, so the config file has an expiration time, so it's kind of, they let you know here. So let's take a look at what the config file looks like. All right, so yeah, it just points to like the host name, the user, then it has the proxy command that I talked about, with the relay information that is now saved in a file, and you have your credentials. And so let's show an example. For example, if you want to do open an SFTP connection instead of just a normal SSH connection. So I just provide that config file because this is not like the default name. I wouldn't have to do that otherwise. And the host, which is just the resource group dash the resource name. And there. So yeah, I was able to SFTP and authenticate using AAD login and use the Arc connectivity platform, connect via Shark. And that is useful because then you have a lot more flexibility with what you can do. And yeah, I think the final feature that I wanted to show, it has not been working for me too well today for some reason. I don't know if it's there have been some storms here these days, so my connection has been a little not great. So I'll hope this will work, but I can at least show you what the experience looks like. So in the portal, you also have, if you go to your machine and then you go to this connect option, you are able to do like a one-click connect thing, which is basically just you're going to use Cloud Shell and run on one of these commands for you. And that will facilitate that way you can just like, even if you don't have Azure CLI set up or Azure PowerShell set up on your whatever client machine that you're using, you could just like open your browser, go to the portal, and connect from anywhere. So I'm going to attempt this, but fair warning, it might not work because it wasn't working. Oh wait, this is a promising start. Okay. I don't know why I'm getting this error, but
there's a known bug in Cloud Shell right now. So Vivian, I can show you the quick workaround. So if you just do like the Microsoft Entra ID one, just because it'll be easier, and if you just copy that same yep, and then to paste that into Cloud Shell.
Okay.
Paste. And then we're going to add an SSH parameter. So it's a -- space dash. And then it's strict host key checking. So
what's the one?
Strict host key. And then spelling it. Yep, equals no. And this is a known bug on Cloud Shell that deployed this week, so they're fixing it as we speak.
Oh, okay. Okay, that explains it. Like this?
And then there's a -O for option before the strict.
Oh, okay. That's an option.
Yeah.
Like this?
Lowercase o.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's give it a try.
This just demonstrates the ability to pass the SSH, I'd say, configuration options as well. So back to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that feature that I explained earlier, you can just add any OpenSSH parameter. Yeah, so sorry about that bug. It's new, should be fixed soon. But yeah, this is cool. You can use Microsoft Entra, which I think is the new name for AAD. You can use key-based authentication, and I don't have that set up, but you could like use Azure Key Vault or insert your key manually, which is cool. The ability to keep your keys in Azure Key Vault and then just pull them easily is really cool. Or username and password. So yeah, that was all my presentation. If you guys have more questions.
Yeah, if you've got any questions, again, please post them in chat or feel free to just jump in. That goes along with Twitch chat as well. Yeah, thank you, Vivian. That was really, really good. Yeah, very, very interesting to see, especially from a deep dive perspective, looking at the actual architecture. That was actually quite enlightening. It's kind of like not a black box that just sits out there. It's actually understanding a little bit more about how it ticks under the hood, which is always really interesting. So, I think I'm just going to open it up again. Does anyone have any other questions?
Did I miss anything in the chat? Because the chat just works now.
I think Danny has actually been on top of it. Just quickly going through. Yep. This happens behind the scenes. What we see is, I think Danny has answered all the questions.
All right, that's great. All right,
cool
thanks so much for helping out with the questions, Danny. I could not see the chat. Yeah, so I think that's it. This was fun. Thank you guys for attending and listening to me.
Yeah, and thank you guys for waking up early. I know Danny now is probably ready to go back to sleep, and he probably won't be in work tomorrow. So, and thank you, Vivian, for waking up a lot earlier than most people would usually go. 4 o'clock in the morning is still not a time in the morning. Time doesn't exist at that. No. Anyway, thank you guys. We really appreciate it. That was an awesome talk. If anyone else has any other further questions, how can they get in contact with you?
I think I can maybe drop my email in the chat, if my work email, and then you are able to just shoot me an email. Yeah, I just dropped in the chat my email address. I think that's the easiest way to reach out. I don't know if you guys ever attend the PowerShell community days. We're usually always there as well. Not community days, sorry, the community call.
Yeah, the community call, yeah.
I guess the time is kind of bad for you guys.
Yeah, I even struggle with the DSC community call because I'm literally going up an elevator. I'm kind of walking from the train into the office, and then I've got to go up an elevator, and I know I'm going to drop out, so it makes it a little bit challenging. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining. Special thank you to Vivian and Danny for joining. Hope to see you guys next month. Potentially it's going to be Script Runner, or alternatively it'll be a talk by Nick Bissell. Still trying to figure that out. And if you got any further questions, feel free to reach out to Vivian. She's posted the email in the chat. And cool beans. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.